The views and opinions expressed on the following show are not necessarily the views and opinions of WHPS, its affiliates, management, or sponsors. You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
FM 88.1 WHPR, Highland Park.
WVIE 107.3 FM Charlotte, Amalia, Virgin Islands.
It's that time, y'all. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Yeah, it's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Yeah, it's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. It's straight talk with Valerie. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. It's straight talk with Valerie. Come on.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It can be a tragedy, love. It can be a mystery, or it can be a fantasy. But it can turn out to be perfect in love. Perfect in love. Perfect in love. So real. Perfect in love. It's what I want to feel. Your love will be so true. I promise to stay true.
Why love is a choice, not an emotion. Most of us tend to focus on falling in love and use the feeling of love to determine the duration of a relationship. Falling in love is easy to do, almost effortless, but losing that loving feeling is not that hard to do either. Of course, when a relationship is new, it is fun and enjoyable, courting or being courted. In the beginning, we are constantly thinking about the new person in our life and wanting to spend all of our time together and share new experiences together. We want to show how we feel by getting cards or flowers or just sending a cute text message or something even more romantic. Feelings, however, can be fleeting. No one seems to want to talk about those loving feelings that fade, that it takes work to keep the love alive, and that choosing to stay in love is a choice we all must make. Who we love is as much of a choice as it is a feeling. Staying in love takes a commitment. After the rosy glow of all the new relationships wears off, we have to make a decision. Do we want to love this person and commit to a relationship together, or are we going to let this person go? That's why I say love is a choice, not an emotion.
What's going on, Detroit, and everyone on RadioWeCanSee.com? Those of you that are checking in on 107.3 WVIE in the Virgin Islands, and everybody that's tapping in on Facebook, what's going on? Well, we have another episode of Love and Logic, and tonight We're going to talk about, is love a choice? And I have my dynamic duo with me, Shalita Robinson Lucas. Say what's up to everybody, Shalita.
What's up? What up, though? What up, though?
And also 360 Smooth.
Good evening, everybody.
All righty.
And here we go.
And here we go. So in my monologue, you guys heard, I think love is a choice. And I think love is a choice because I don't believe, like the song say, at first I thought it was infatuation, but then later on something happened, right? I don't believe in love at first sight. I believe that you're infatuated, you have interest in this person, and then you make a choice based on whatever criteria, but you make a conscious choice if you want to continue on with this individual, and later on those feelings grow and become love. And even if you continue to go, because see, love is spoken, love is shown, not spoken anyway. So you have to choose acts of love. Also, you have to choose whether you have that person's best interest. You have to choose, do you love them enough not to hurt them? You make a lot of choices after you decide you're going to open yourself up emotionally to this individual. So again, I say love is a choice. What do you say, Armin?
I believe love is a series of choices, not necessarily one. And also it does have a certain component that is truly just emotional insofar as what you just instinctively just feel towards another person. You know, some things you just cannot fake. You can't just say, well, this person, they just match up to all these little check boxes I have on this laundry list of qualities that I tell myself I'm going to fall in love with. No, there's always that something special that you just kind of recognize in that other person that draws you in. And is that infatuation? Possibly. But I think once couples take the time to explore some of the relationship and do what I call allowing infatuation to die, then they begin to see how they really think about this person, how this other person really thinks about them, and then they begin a journey of exploring different choices as to whether or not they want to continue that progression, or if they say, you know what, this is just not for me.
Okay. Shalita, my dear god sister.
Yes, ma'am. So
what do you have for us?
You know what? I'm straight shooting today. I do believe love is a choice. And I believe that there's some very simple directives that we're given when we're choosing individuals, whether that, and of course, you know, there is all of these humans have come up with these ideas about what love is. We have Eros and go ahead, you know them all.
I know some of Philos,
yes,
agape,
and so we've come up with this these different forms of love that's kind of separates, makes a difference between friendship or sisterhood or a godly love and all of these things. But ultimately, love is a choice. And I think the purest form of love you'll find in those people that have been together a long time because they've committed to the process. Because there's a difference between love and being in love. People say, oh, are you in love with me? I don't even think most of us understand. I think we ask because we think we know there's a difference, but I don't think we understand the difference, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, You know, most of the time when people begin to fall out of relationships, well, I'm not in love with you anymore, but I still love you, you know. But yeah, love is a choice. So if you're not in love with that person, then you might want to start exploring what happened along the way that derailed the relationship.
Well, folks, I must say, tonight is my 2-year anniversary at WHPR, but also it is the first time that we all agree.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to agree down the road technical.
But we starting off
technicalities.
good. We all agree. This is monumental. Now, the reason why I say love is a choice and not an emotion. See, emotions are wavering. That love should be consistent despite those emotions, right? I may make a mistake. I may get angry with you. I may get upset with you. I may not like some of the things that you do, but I still love you.
Absolutely.
So I think that love has to be consistent, but it's not always consistent. It should be consistent.
Well, why is love not consistent?
Well, I would say it's not consistent because we're still going on that journey. So just take two 19-year-olds fresh out of high school going into college. You know, they're dating each other and they're following all these little preconceived notions of what relationships look like. You know, they're going by what they were taught all their lives. They're going by what they've seen on television, and now, bam, here it is. Everything is live and in color, is on. So now what do? So they start the conversation process, and they start seeing certain interests, which may be mutual, some may be exclusive, but they go through this journey of discovery. And unfortunately, one of the things I think our generation and the generations before us have failed to do is actually engage this part of that process. Instead, what the prior generations did was kind of along the lines of, well, look, nobody told me, so you go out in the street and you get it like I got it. And so the kids that generation doesn't necessarily have that mentorship, if you will, when it comes to actually.
Are you saying the current generation don't have the mentorship or prior?
Well, I'm using the current generation, but to be honest, all these generations have been the same. They've consistently made a mistake. So that's why when you see this, what seems like it's some type of trend of people not loving each other the way that they used to, or people not building longer lasting relationships. You know, we constantly say things like the divorce rate is consistently rising and we don't know why. No, we do know why.
Yeah, we do.
Because we are not consistently introducing that mentorship at earlier ages. So now you have generations upon generations who have kind of been hit or miss. You know, the successful couples, well, yes, they have put some of this mentorship into their children in the successive generations. But those who haven't been so successful, well, they've been seeing the seeds of failure as well. So going back to our example of the couple, if this young couple has somebody mentoring them, telling them, well, look, slow down, take time, get to know this other person before you do something rash, such as, I don't know,
get married.
I was gonna say have a pregnancy, but yes, get married. Like, no, slow down, learn who this person is. You know, so often we say things like.
So you're saying they took the courtship out?
Yes, they took the courtship out.
I abbreviated it for you.
Yes, but not just that. They've taken out so much of the heart and soul of it, because so often we hear people say all the time, I want somebody to love me for who I am, which is there's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing. But the flip side is, are you willing to love somebody for who they are?
Well, I think the issue is people desire people give the love that they want, right? People extend what they want in return, and it might not be what the other person needs. That's number one. So you and I had this conversation recently about fidelity, right? Mm-hmm. This is just an example. What I need is fidelity. The other person may not be so comfortable with fidelity. Mm-hmm. So we tend to give the other partner that which we want in return, but the other partner might not need that. And they might not even identify that as love. But I think the other interesting piece here is we have not identified what love is.
Oh, and I agree with everything you just said. I agree with all that.
Yeah.
But that's actually not what I mean.
But I was talking about what I mean then.
Okay.
Well, you know, yes. Love is a very complex thing.
Yes.
It's very complex. And it takes a lot of communication, understanding, and so much more to even get to that epicenter of love. Like, I believe we take so much for granted. For instance, you know, we get in someone's bed before we get in their head. You know, so now, especially with women, emotions are all over the place because when we're talking about younger generations, not seasoned.
And the old ones too.
Well, maybe. Not me. I'm exploring everything. But I remember when I was younger, I didn't. You know, and I think honestly and very organically, that's how it's supposed to be. When you first journey out and start getting into relationships, intimacy and all that, you don't know. I don't care how many times my mother told me whatever she told me. I still did certain things on my own that defied whatever she had to say. Maybe not, but my experiences are mine. They're not my mother's, right? And even if we went through the same thing, the outcome will be different because of who I'm experiencing it with and who I am, right? And it wasn't until I became an adult that I could really have a 100% organic, genuine conversation about relationships, intimacy, and all of that with my mother. So as a teenager, whatever she's trying to tell me about a man, it really wasn't a great conversation because she was more talking at me. I'll say it wasn't even a conversation at all. She was just talking to me. Right. I had very little input. She was telling me what to do, not asking me anything about how I really felt about it. And at the time we had the Wayne County Health Department right on the corner of Merriman Road and Michigan Avenue. And she was just like, look, I got pregnant with you when I was 17. I had you when I was 18. This is not what you want. I love you, but this is not what you want. It's very hard for me as a teen mom in the middle of the civil rights movement and stuff like that. So, you know, you already watched the movie at school, so we're going to go to the clinic. That was about the end of the conversation. You go in the clinic, they examining me, they got all kinds of utensils and all. I'm like, what the hell is all of this? I'm damn near traumatized at the clinic, right? And then you come out with a nice sandwich bag with a 6-month supply of birth control pills in it, and you just told, don't miss none.
Yeah.
That was the extent. Everything else, nothing was said.
They'll get it how you live it. You know?
So, and I think that's the narrative. I think the narrative, I think we all in our own way have designed the idea of what love is. We have yet, even in this platform amongst these three intelligent beings, identified what love is. We've yet to identify what it is.
Well, love is not sex. Now, a lot of people will say that sex is not love.
But see, that's why I was getting back to that question of not so much do you want somebody to love you for who you are, but are you prepared to love somebody for who they are? You know, that actually sets the stage for well, that sets the foundation of the love that I think we can pretty much come to a consensus on. Because if you're not really prepared for the idea that your actions have a direct cause and effect on another human being, your wants, your desires have a direct effect on another human being. This other human being's life may very well be in your hands. Mm-hmm. If you haven't conceptualized those specific things, then how then do you say, okay, well, I want to branch off into get into a committal relationship or a long-term relationship? Wait a minute. These are the things that come with that type of relationship. You have to be able to address those things out the gate. If you can't address those things out the gate, then yes, you're going to have some problems down the line, because you're looking at love as something external as opposed to something internal. It starts with you. Love starts with your expression. It starts with what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to give up, what you are willing to devote to this relationship. And I think so often we get so caught up in wanting love to find us, or wanting to receive that love that's external from us. But it's still from a very singular position. When we think about love in that manner, we think about it from, I want that existential love, but I want it to look like what I've envisioned. But I'm saying, when you get stuck in looking at love in this reciprocal kind of lens, then you lose sight of what you're supposed to bring to the table. It's like trying to play poker, but you don't want to ante up. You want everybody else at the table to ante up except you. No, you have to bring something to the table.
Well, I think some people believe that love is tangible also. It's based on things and materialism and, all of these other things. And you find out, I know a lot of people found out during COVID-19 what love was. Because you in the house with this person that you have been with for an extended period of time, and it's just you and them. No movies, no dates, no plays, no nothing, but you and them in this house together. And you will find out how strong your bond is, how far your love will go, if you are really in love. All of that stuff can come out. I see you done broke out your sword.
Boom, boom. Hey, the King James.
Okay. And what does the King have to say?
Well, King James gives a clear definition of what love is.
Love is patient, love is kind, that whole thing.
And we don't think about those things in our day-to-day interactions with grandma, mama, cousin, sister, brother. We don't think about those things with our mates. But the Bible gives us a clear description of what love is.
Well, I'm going to let you go ahead and read that and make our mama Catherine proud.
Oh. So it is 1 Corinthians 13th chapter, and it starts at the 4th verse. And it uses charity. It's interchangeable. Charity. Now, interesting. Charity is intermingled with the word love. It depends on which biblical version you're reading, right? So I like to use the word love because that's what we were taught. Love suffereth long and is kind. Now, isn't that interesting to put it together? One sentence, it says it suffers long and it's kind. So that's one thing that love is. Love envieth not. Love vaineth not itself and is not puffed up. It does not behave itself unseemly, it does not seek not her own. It does not seek not her own. Is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. It rejoices not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. It beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. It never fails. But whether there be prophecy, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether they be knowledge, they shall vanish away. And that is what love is.
Well, there are differences between that Christ-like love and then the love between two people in a relationship. And if it could, by chance, just a small percent, be all of those things that you read, I think that the divorce rate would not be as high as it is, and people would get along a lot better. But I think some of the things that you read are very difficult to not necessarily integrate in your relationship, but to sustain. Because long suffering, if you're suffering and some of those other things that you're going through, I'm sorry to say, and I'm not challenging the word, but that's where the feeling of love starts to diminish. When you start suffering, when you start experiencing hardships, and of course you should stick and stay. That's what Big Mama did, right? But in this generation, you would be hard pressed to find someone that's going to stick and stay through all of the suffering and all of the other things as well.
The suffering that we imagine is the suffering that it refers to.
True.
I don't believe so. And here's the other thing. When we say things like, this is the love of Jesus, we are supposed to be following in his footsteps, right? And so it is a very clear depiction of how we're supposed to treat each other, period. Whether it's in an intimate relationship between men and women, it is amongst sisters and siblings and grandmothers and grandfathers, it doesn't deviate. It's not eros or any of those things. It's simply a definition of what love is and how we should operate, period.
Well, ladies, let me interject right now. You said something I do disagree with.
Okay, great.
That is not that suffering that's referred to. No, if anything, I believe it is that suffering. And that's the problem with this generation. This generation thinks that the slightest inconvenience or maybe a substantial inconvenience is enough to sever the relationship. No, that's not what love is. Yes, you do, and you will suffer some inconvenience dealing with another human being, because guess what? This person has to suffer something for you as well. None of us is perfect. We all fall short of God's grace and perfection. So, and that goes back to what I was saying before. Are you willing to accept this other person? And if you can't conceptualize being able to accept another person with their pros, their cons, their blessings, their faults, then how can you ever expect somebody to do the same thing for you?
Yeah.
Because you are just as imperfect as they are. Hell, maybe even more imperfect than they are.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that give and take. And that, like you said earlier, the love itself should be consistent, but no, that's just not how it works. Love is something that's tested. It is something that's deeply emotional. It is something that we invest in ourselves and we invest in other people with. So there is a certain ebb and a flow, a roller coaster effect. It's just like, it's just like being happiness, like the idea of happiness. You're never really going to be happy all the time.
Well, that's because that's situational. I woke up happy this morning when outside it was warm. By noon it was raining and cold. I was unhappy.
Right.
So those kind of ideas.
So long term, a lot of times what we really find ourselves looking for is contentment. But with love, you will find that part of love that is consistent. But at the same time, you will find another segment of love that maybe dips up and above that line. You may say, you know what? I just woke up next to this person and now I just love them 10 times more today than I did yesterday. And then later on in the day, they do something stupid and you're sitting there saying, oh my God, I can't believe I fell in love with you. So, we're human beings, we go through that ebb and flow, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, so often we get so caught up in our own feelings and so caught up in our expectations that we place on the other person, that when we go through a certain inconvenience, well, our first, we're still human beings, we're still animals. So our first response is fight or flight. So when we find something that rubs us the wrong way, well, the first thing we want to do is separate ourselves as far away from it as quickly as possible. But we just can't do that because we're making commitments to other people and other people are making commitments to us. And the only way to honor that is to stick it out and work and actually do more conflict resolution, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, you know what? I'm feeling unhappy today. Or, you know what? Maybe you messed up and abused my trust. And I'm just going to, you know what? I'm going to end this. No.
I think the other thing, too, to go back to the suffering piece, I think what Valerie might have been referring to, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I know what I thought about. I thought about great aunties and great grandmothers who suffered very long, hard, bitter relationships that had no of satisfaction outside of their children. That's what I was referring to. I do agree with what you're saying. So just to clear, the other thing that I think we have to really concentrate some conversation around is the idea of love and that emotion. People will leave relationships because they don't feel it anymore. They don't feel it anymore. Not realizing that the feeling was just a flight of fancy, if you will. The real work of love is through time and space and commitment and opportunity. And as he said, these places where simple things like love language, learning your partner's love language. There's so many things to do inside of a relationship. And if you just predicate your relationship on this feeling, which is an emotion, then it will suffer and it will fail. It's going to decay. And so, I think we have to really understand what love looks like. And that is why it's important for me to go back to the Bible, because it's a template for how we should be engaging each other to begin with.
Well, let me say this. If love were demonstrated only when one had loving feelings, then relationships would be roller coasters. Commitment is the additive that makes the road smooth and flat. Commitment means the relationship is bigger than either one of the partners. The good of the relationship becomes the goal. The marriage, relationship, or partnership is more important than either of the people in it. This helps both people rise above each person's sometimes competing views and needs.
Yes, ma'am. Because you're going to often find yourself with various views. And here's the other thing. Just like we evolve as people, our partners evolve. I'm married extremely young, to dismay. But, I had it all figured out because my granny had it figured out. You know what I mean? It's better to marry than to burn. That's what played in my head. In all things, marriage is honorable and the bed is undefiled. I got loaded with scripture, but I didn't get loaded with understanding, if you will. So I married very young. And honestly, I think if he and I would have courted. Now, and here's the thing. People put a time on everything nowadays. But if we'd have courted past high school, because we were high school sweethearts, and he went off to the military, I went off to college. We married the next year. So we had already maybe 3 years in the game when we married. But we married still at 18 and 19 respectively. And it's an easy thing to say we grew apart. It's not that. We evolved without understanding.
Great. Well, let's take a break. You have been listening to The Real Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream, where we keep it fro real. And we have been talking about, is love a choice? And my co-host 360 Smooth and my god sister Shalita and myself say that it is. So we will be back after this break to take this discussion a little bit further. See you soon.
From the moment I met you, something whispered in my ear that you were the one. And I had won by merely becoming a contender for a prize that the world will surely envy. You were more than just beautiful and friendly. Cause see, I instantly wanted you to see the end with me. We were made for an eternity. You reminded me of my mortality, cause at that very second I thought that I would die if you weren't the one God had chosen to love me.
A gift telling my heart desires. A love on man so fierce with fire. My real revenge supply my needs. Yet I was lost, but you found me. Perfect is the heart for peace. All my love I guarantee. You and I make unity. Perfect peace is what you bring to me.
Now hold up. I don't give my heart away with ease, but when you walk by, I feel a breeze that makes me want to take a chance and open my mind to our romance. Now I know you're not out here playing games. I thought you were tripping when you wrote Imani than your last name. And I admit that, babe, I feel the same. Come through, boo, let's do this thing, yeah.
Downfalls make it worth it, put our pride aside. Against the odds, we survive, leave a pass behind. Saw you walking with some friends, took a bold approach. Introduction and kiss your hand, I be doing the most. Confident, still not aggressive. First sight of your smile, in the presence of a blessing. No love in the wild, so exchange of my numbers. FaceTiming for hours, a few laughs, and now I wonder. One look in your eyes, might divide or bring us closer to trust, closer to love. Entangled, thinking married my crush. No pressure until you press it now.
You have been listening to Millard Thomas Jr., and that track was called Ready to Love. And we have also been talking about, is love a choice? And we say yes. So we're going to get back into this session of Love and Logic with 360 Smooth and Shalita Robinson Lucas. So let's go back to it. So we say love is a choice. We say that our grandmothers endured a lot of long suffering and stuff that we are not willing to take. I agree with that, but I do think our fuse is a little too short in some instances. You know, I think that because it's so, in certain situations, it's easy to get out of the relationship or the marriage, so you just do it. You know, some aspects of love, when you get into it, it's like a business.
Oh,
Or should it be though? Shouldn't it be?
For me, yes. Yes, because as we, besides being a serial entrepreneur, but because some of the things that you handle, you have to run it like a business. If you don't, I don't know how you will grow in all of the areas that you need to, especially financially, and many other areas. You have to treat it like a business. You know, and our personal feelings toward each other may be one thing. If children are involved, their needs and what they want and how they're going to maintain if we're not together or while we're together, that has to be considered. You know, the home that we live in, it has to be paid for. The bills have to be paid for. We have to have a certain amount of money to maintain the household. What I want to buy and spend may not what you want to buy and spend money on. What does that look like? Does all the money go into the pot together? And we take an allowance, or is your money, my money, and we split the bills? It's a business, and you got to decide how this thing is going to operate, especially if the money is not long, where you can do what you want to do and it's not an issue.
I think some of the other dynamics we're talking about that's related to love being a choice is also related to women and these ideas about independence, right? So we have to give credit where credit is due. Love is absolutely a choice, but we're also making choices that are detrimental to the process. If I'm making 6 figures and I find him in an adulterous affair, I'm choosing to be out. Where great grandma didn't have those kind of numbers in her bank. Great grandma didn't have a college education. You know what I mean? Great grandmother was pretty, and granddad, they were kind of compelled to work this thing out in a way that this generation just does not. And I think it's to our detriment now. I think we have to dial back and find some balance in the middle, because we're walking way too fast.
Yeah, that's a whole show right there about the cheating part. Does that mean that you don't love your spouse or the person you're with because you've had this extramarital affair? And for me, I tend to say they can be totally separate. That could be about fantasy and opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not satisfied at home at all. So I think we need to have a whole show on that particular topic. But, no disrespect or criticism for you saying, hey, I'll be out. But for me, be like, man, you went and slept with someone one time, two times, however many times it was, because you're never going to get the truth. You just know you caught them. Right? You're not going to get the truth. But it's like, am I going to...
What's the number I can give so you will stay?
Exactly. But here's the thing. Do I want to give up everything that we've built because you fantasized and took advantage of an opportunity?
And I think the other part of that too is we have these ideas about, sex is so involved in the idea of love that I think it has outranked love itself.
Yep.
So in that sense, and I've read some excerpts from here and there where people will say, well, you know what, I still love that person. That thing that I did over there was about me. And then, or I've read, well, sis, you're not doing what you need to do to keep him at home. And I think immediately I think about 1 Corinthians. Let's get back to what love is. Let's get back. It's patient, it's kind, it's long suffering. It does not envy. It does not boast. You know what I mean? And I think we just haven't gotten to a place where we can have dialogue, like honest dialogue about the sheer level of giving that you have to go through to receive.
I agree with you 100%. Go ahead, Armin.
What I think about is how often we forget that love, as we think about it, is actually a fairly contemporary outlook. Because when you look back, say, okay, take that diamond engagement ring, for example. Well, the practice of even presenting a diamond engagement ring to announce an engagement, that's something that's only been in existence within the last 200 or so years. The whole concept of...
So we haven't been emancipated but 150. So.
Exactly. The idea of marrying for love is something that is relatively new as well, because you look back hundreds of years ago, you had arranged marriages where, say in one society, if I wanted to marry, say for instance, if I wanted to marry Shalita, I'd have to go to her father and give him 10 goats and 2 chickens or something like that.
And then
Not
you
for me, boo.
look, and then you gonna get the ugly sister first until you plow with 10 more mules.
Well,
Then you
look
get
at,
somebody else.
well, if you look at Western Europe, some of those European countries, the fathers had to pay a dowry to the son-in-law to marry his daughter. So, you know, when we look at marriage in terms of marrying for love, that's actually something relatively new, just based off of civilization and technology. And I believe civilization and technology have warped in a certain sense the way we look at relationships, because we've started eliminating that whole mutually
Aligned.
Assured survival.
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay, once again, using us for example, if I were to marry Shalita, she knows that I'm going to take care of her, provide for her, protect her, cover.
Provide, protect, and cover. Mm-hmm.
Whole 9 yards. The flip side is I know that she's going to do the same thing for me. She's going to take care of me. So, you know, if one of us gets sick, we know one is going to take care of the other. If one of us has some problem bringing in income, we know the other one is going to make the difference. We're going to cover each other. And it goes back to what we said before about the relationships being like a business. And if one person fails to come to work one day, well, the business can't fail just because one person doesn't come to work. No, the job must go on.
That's the ebb and flow part.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. So with this last few minutes that we have left, about 5 minutes, what would you say to someone who feels that love is not a choice? Just in our closing statement, what would you say to someone? Because what I would say is, then you should rethink how you are evaluating your relationships and situationships or whatever that you're getting in. Because at some point you do have to choose, or you're going to lose. You have to choose something. There is some criteria that you have set, even if you don't realize it. There's things that turn you on, and there are things that turn you off. And you are making choices, whether you're making them cognitively, emotionally, physically, you're making some choices.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't think love is a choice, you need to rethink it, because it is. Armin?
Well, I mean, that's to say then, for me, if someone said, I don't think love is a choice, then do you believe love is a process? Because if love isn't a choice, you have to know it's a process. Because if that's the case, then any old shoe shine on a bicycle in the middle of the winter can choose you. If it's not a choice, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to run off with him because he chose me. It's a process. Love is a process. And it's a choice. You have to choose the process, right? I would say to people, slow down. I would say to people, slow all the way down and go back to courting. Because our parents are not guiding us in the way, like Armin said, like they did in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They're not guiding that thing anymore, right? So slow it all the way down and court the person.
Yeah, I agree, because my mom just did like damage control. Like, you're not going to be able to control these emotions that you have. These pills need to be in your system for 30 days, or otherwise you're going to have a baby. So here they are, get started. And it wasn't much else that went with that, right?
And see, for you have given that narrative a couple times. For you equated love with sex.
Yes, I did.
For me, I didn't equate love with sex because my mama told me, well, she didn't let us wash. She said she could look in our garments and tell if we were having relations. So I never equated love with sex. I equated sex with marriage, right? So, but I still didn't learn what love was.
It was trial and error then, huh?
Right. I just need to slow down.
And see, for me, I would say, okay, you don't believe love is a choice? Then why did you choose? Then why is it that you love this particular person amidst the sea of other people? What is it about this person here that made them garner your love and not all these other suitable people? At some point in time, you had to have at least chosen that one person.
Correct.
So
unless you out here balling until you fall with 500 of them out. Then
to further that train of thought, I say, okay, well, fine. What is it that you love about this person? Is it the way that they treat you? Is it something that's just innately something about them, just about their personality? What is it about them that has you so wrapped up to where that's the person you see as opposed to somebody else? And now, on top of that, what does this person do for you? You know, what is it that this person does that makes you feel good that all these other people fail to do or just never stepped up to do? What is it? And if you could tell me that on some level you've deemed this person to be superior to all the rest of the people in the sea of people you possibly could date, I will show you right then and there. That is your choice. You made that choice.
Well, that was a great way to end the day.
And we all agreed today.
We did. So that was a wonderful thing. I generally do an anniversary show, but I am so committed to this show. To the two of you, I appreciate you, and what a great way to commemorate another year of being on the air, and great things are beginning to happen. There's some expansions in a couple of areas of business that I'm in that I'm really excited about, and I just want to thank you so much, Armin, for lending your perspective and being a part of Love and Logic from the very beginning. And Shalita, for you connecting the dots. And I believe that our Facebook group is doing well. We get a lot of dialogue. And there's actually one gentleman that I really would like to bring on the show. Yes. So, Alfonso, if you are listening, you need to inbox one of us, Armin, Shalita, or myself, if you would be interested in co-hosting with us, because I'm telling you, he has it on and popping with rapid fire.
Oh, yeah. So he's from Inkster as well. He's a graduate from class of 88, Viking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my 88 homie.
Okay.
So yeah, he will probably be great, a great additive a time or two, because he's coming with it.
Yeah, and he'll bring some testosterone to add to Armin. So
I think I got enough of that.
Yeah, Armin got enough to cover everybody, but I love you both. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You have been listening to The Real Black Coffee, No Sugar, No Cream, where I don't try to spill the tea or make you feel dazed like you had a shot of cheap liquor. I just want you to see things from a different perspective, mine. And with that, we're out of here. You have a wonderful week. So long.
the story of love and pain. The tears can be like rain that falls from the sky. Watch the flowers bloom in your life. So don't be scared to cry. Don't be ashamed to let the tears fall from your eyes. So don't be scared to cry. Don't be ashamed. Let the tears let them fall from your eyes. When the seasons change, don't be scared of what the change may bring. It may bring sunshine, then again it may bring you rain. And if the changes seem like a storm,